Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of On the Trail. Short episodes answering common questions therapists and private practice owners have about websites, SEO, online marketing, all the things as they grow their private practices. I'm your host, Daniel Fava from Private Practice Elevation. So today I've got a very short and simple episode today, and I'm going to share a little bit more about what is my favorite AI tool right now. So at this point in time, AI tools are exploding. They're everywhere. And, frankly, it's a little overwhelming because every time I get on Instagram, I'm seeing an ad for a new tool that I need in my business, a new AI way of doing things, which is amazing, but it's also a little daunting as well because there's so many things that we can now spend our time trying to learn and trying to figure out, what's really going to be beneficial in our businesses. And at PPE, things are really evolving and they're changing quickly because of AI. We've shifted how we do SEO and organic visibility for our clients in order to make sure that people get picked up in AI or get cited in those Google AI snippets. We are also learning how do we create websites more efficiently and use these tools to create better websites and work efficiently. And for me, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that go on with AI, a lot of automation and things that I'm digging into personally that I'm super excited about. And so that's really the impetus for this episode, is because I just want to share, hopefully, helpful information about which tool I am using the most right now. And so the tool that I'm using the most right now when it comes to AI is a tool called VIKTOR. And the way that VIKTOR is different, if you visit their website, they talk about this isn't a tool, this is a hire in your business. So that's kind of how it's framed. And I learned about VIKTOR through a business coach that I've been a part of his world for years, since I established my agency. And so it's something that he's been using and digging into. And so I signed up for the free trial, and it does come with a free trial. And I'll let you know where you can get that. We do have a referral link that you all can use, and we both get free credits to play around with VIKTOR. And so VIKTOR is something you plug into Slack. So I'm not sure how many of you all are using Slack, but you may have heard about Slack. Slack is a place where your team, businesses can create a Slack workspace where you can converse on different things. So in PPE, we've got a channel all about SEO, and we've got a channel all about development where our developers can share information and collaborate together. So Slack is a communication might not be one that everybody uses in a private practice, but that's okay. And I want to kind of frame like where this is going. And so what VIKTOR is a way to plug AI and connect Slack, a communication channel, with all the platforms, most of the platforms, over 3,000 platforms that you may be using in your business. So I'm going to kind of walk through how I tested this out and what it's doing for me. So I had an assistant, Amanda, and she's been with me a long time. And so as her kids have grown and just different responsibilities have come up, she's moved on and is not working in PPE. And so at about the same time that she was winding down, I was starting to dig into AI and dig into specifically VIKTOR. So I signed up for this free trial, connected it to Slack, started giving it certain permissions, certain ramifications and things, that just to kind of house it. And right away, it was like, hey, I got this message. Like, I scanned through your Slack channels and there's a few workflows that we could automate for you. Would you like me to continue? So right away, it's like somebody showed up in my business and was like, hey, I can help you, with these different workflows. So what I did, one of the main things that Amanda was doing was part of the workflow for this podcast. I record a podcast. I create show notes, I create images, or she creates images. Then every Monday morning, the show needs to get published to the host, the podcast host, and then needs to go on our website in the form of show notes, in our WordPress website. So there's all these steps that need to happen. Oh, then we need to write an email that goes out each week. So I said, hey, VIKTOR, can you help me automate this process? And so what started, there was a need that started this conversation with this tool, this AI bot, got into an iteration workflow of automating this entire workflow. And I was blown away. I was like, more excited than I've ever been in using a new tool. Because what I did is I connected it to Google Drive. I connected it to Asana, which in Asana we've got a pipeline for our podcast episodes. So you'll see a task that has the title of a podcast episode and then links to show notes and all these things. And so I said, "Hey Victor, here's our Asana pipeline for our podcast. I want you to look at the episode that is coming out next week. And what I want you to do is, it started at first, I didn't know what it could do. I said, could you publish the show notes to our WordPress website? And it was like, hey, I looked through, I see that next week's episode is episode number 206, title, blah, blah, blah. I can access the show notes and I can certainly publish this to your website. Here's what you need. Here's what I need from you to publish to the website. And so I went ahead and I created a application key is what it's called in WordPress, which gives some access to your WordPress dashboard to like an API. And so I was like, great, let's do that. And so it went through, it worked, a little hourglass goes up in Slack. And then I get a message, I'm off doing other work and doing, doing other things while it's working for me. And I come back and say, okay, I've got the show notes up on your website as a draft. Here's the link for you to review. And sure enough, there it was, on my website in draft in WordPress. It's like, this is awesome. And so I said, hey, Victor, can you go to Spotify and get the embed link for this week's episode that just came out this morning and then embed that in the WordPress dashboard in the show notes for this episode? It went off again, maybe I go get a snack, get a drink, come back. Hey, I got the code and it's in the show notes now. Awesome. Thank you, Victor. Hey, could you also go get the YouTube video embed link and put that on the show notes, this is all stuff that we were doing manually. And it goes off, gets the embed code, puts it on the show notes on the PPE website. I was like, awesome. Can we do this every Monday morning at 6 a.m.? Because our podcast goes onto our host at 5 a.m. That's when we schedule it. We schedule that in Riverside in our podcast platform. So it's out there in the world on Apple and Spotify at 5 a.m. So at 6 a.m. now Victor goes out, sees the episode in Asana, knows which one is being published, goes to Google Drive, gets the show note doc, puts that in the PPE website, goes out to Spotify, gets the embed link, goes out to YouTube, gets the embed link, and then publishes it. So when I sit down on Monday morning, I have a notification from Victor that says, hey, this week's show notes have gone live. The podcast is up. And then I kept, iterating. And then because every Wednesday we send out an email, a newsletter with, link to those show notes. And so I say, okay, go read the show notes, craft a blurb for our weekly email that goes out and create a Google Doc for me. And so again, that's looped into this scheduled job that Victor does for me every Monday morning. So now all I have to do is I click that doc that Victor has created with that email for the week. I go in, I edit it, I add my own flavor and introduction and those sorts of things. Once it's done, I tell Victor, the email is ready to go into ConvertKit and, be scheduled for a broadcast. And so then it goes back to that document it's created. It already knows where it is because it created it, and then puts that newsletter draft into ConvertKit and then sends me a link. I go in, I schedule it, I segment it, I do those things, add a few things that Victor can't do. You do learn limitations as you keep iterating what it can and cannot do. And so once you create these things, because it's AI and it updates the skills files, it knows what it needs to do next time around. And I'm also finding just small things where we refine it. And I say, hey, Victor, remember this for next time. This needs to happen at this time, or this needs to happen. The next thing we needed to do is make sure we have a short URL link, like private practice elevation /OTT 11 for this episode is going to take you to the show notes that have a more, SEO friendly URL. So iterated that, and that's part of the process when it makes it live. So super exciting stuff. And so we're figuring out, how do we use this? How do I use this more? Different workflows and things where I was going to need to set up documents and duplicate things and do a lot of this stuff. It can now automate it. And it's really helpful to me. I was getting overwhelmed with sort of where do I start with AI? And it's so helpful because it's in Slack and it's conversational. It feels like someone in my business, like I've tied this thing in here. And over time, it gets better and better. Also, because it gets better and better and we keep creating better skills, it gets cheaper and cheaper. And because, AI works on credits, every time you're having this thing run, it is going to cost you those credits. But I really like that Victor is very great about giving you free credits. And I even got a link from an email from them the other day. Take a survey for 4 minutes and we'll give you 20,000 credits. Like, okay, I can do that. So they're very generous with those credits and things. And so that takes a little bit of testing. I'm still new at this. I'm digging into this. But it's super exciting and a lot of fun. It's been really great to plug it in and give Victor things to work on in my business that I would have had to have done manually. And so, yeah, super exciting. And so if you want to check out Victor, like I said, you do need Slack. Slack is a free tool, so you can set up a Slack channel, and then you can go to privatepracticeelevation.com/Victor, VIKTOR, and get free credits there and play around with it. See if this is something that can help. I find it super helpful for workflow of creating content. So if you're doing weekly blog writing, you can have it create ideas for those blog posts, but then also just set up the Google Docs, set up the workflow. You could connect it to your website so it can do the publishing and you don't have to. So that's been super helpful. I'm also tying it into my social media platforms as well. So helping me create social media posts. And I can even schedule those posts with Victor and say, hey, Victor, I need an Instagram post for such and such. Here's the link. Here's the context. Write me a post and then schedule it for Wednesday at noon, stuff like that. So check it out. It's exciting times. A lot going on. I'm excited to dig into AI further. So hopefully, I hope this helps somebody, gives you some things to think about. And as always, if you need help with your online presence and reaching your ideal clients, would love to chat. Go to privatepracticeelevation.com/kickoff and you can schedule a free call. Thanks so much for listening. Now go elevate your practice.